Hi Stampers, this is Brenda Keenan with Keenan Kreations, and today we're going to make a quick and easy holiday card using the stylish Christmas stamp set from Stampin' Up. We're going to be using Real Red, Old Olive, and Tranquil Tide. To get started, we're going to use Whisper White cardstock. This is 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I picked the colors from the Under the Mistletoe Designer Series paper. I'm going to use this little strip. It's 1 inch wide. I cut it slightly longer than the cardstock so I can trim off the excess later. These are the different patterns that are in this Designer Series paper. I'll just flip these through. There's 6 different sheets that are double-sided, and you get 2 of each. So you get 12 by 12 total. Now I want to have a random placement of images, but I want them pretty close together. So I'm not going to stamp the poinsettia here, here, and here, and then fill in with the leaves. I'm going to stamp the poinsettia in the corner, add a couple of leaves, and then another poinsettia, add a couple of leaves. So I'm going to work from the corner out so I can stamp my way across the cardstock and keep the images nice and close together. The other thing I wanted to point out is this poinsettia is not a solid image stamp, so it has different variations of etching in the stamp, so you get different shades of the same ink. And I think these stamps work best when your ink pad is not too juicy. If your ink pad is too wet, it almost kind of fills in these lighter areas and you don't get as much shading. We're going to start with Real Red ink. And just tap it across your ink pad. And I'm going to place this in the corner and press firmly. I'm going to open up Old Olive. I'll be going back and forth with these colors as I change the stamps. And when I first made this card, I was thinking I would have the point of this leaf right here next to the poinsettia, but it honestly is fine no matter where you place it. You'll see I might start this way, but as I go, I'm just randomly turning it to get the most snug fit of images. So tap that on your Old Olive, and you can also see that I trim my stamps very close to the image so I can see exactly where that's going to stamp. Now I'm going back to the poinsettia, and I'm going to stamp this one right about here. And then I'll go back to the leaf. So I'm going to go ahead and layer this next. I like to use the snail adhesive. And we're just going to get this right up to the edge. I don't know if you can see that. There's just a teensy bit of red here. So I'm going to go off the cardstock and trim off that excess. So I want to add a little bit of ribbon because it is a holiday card. I'll show you a trick for tying a bow and saving some of your ribbon. So this is one of our stamping blocks. This is block D, and you can see how it's more of a rectangle rather than a square. So I'm going to tie the ribbon on the block, and then I'm going to cut it in the back and add it to the card. So if I want the ribbon to go long ways, I want to use the narrow part of this block. If I had my card or my ribbon going short ways, I would use a smaller block than this. So I'm going to slip the ribbon under the block, and then I'm going to tie my bow. So I tie my bow just as if I were tying my shoes. Whatever is on top gets tucked underneath. And it does kind of move around, so I don't really care about that. I don't try to hold it still, but I do try to hold the middle. So I'm gonna turn this over. I'm trying not to twist the ribbon, and I'm using this middle finger to hold that. So now I'm making a loop here. I'm switching middle fingers and wrapping this around and tucking that through. I'm sorry if that's hard to see. It's actually harder for me to tie bows now. My hands have a little bit of, I think, arthritis right here, so the tiny little light gripping is hard for me to do, but I'm still managing. And so I'm just kind of adjusting the bow. When I first tie it, it doesn't look very pretty. I just want to get it tied, and then I kind of fuss with it. So once I get it where I think I like it, you almost want to get it a little bit smaller than what you want, because you're going to end up tugging it one more time to make it tight. So, and then I just kind of tug this into place, the little tails. So there's my bow. Now I might fuss with this a little bit once I cut it, and I'll show you that in a second. So we're going to slide this off. I'm going to go ahead and cut the tails here. And I know I want my bow to be near the bottom. I'm not going to cut the ribbon right here in the middle, because then my bow is going to end up in the middle of the card. So I'm going to cut my ribbon just a little bit past where I think it's going to come off the card. So a little bit less than half. So I don't know, what is that, 2 inches? And then we just snip this. So now I can add this to my card and glue the ends around the back, and I've saved some ribbon. One thing I've learned when I'm stamping on Whisper White and I have a lot of excess ink here is sometimes when I turn my cardstock over to add the adhesive, it picks up some of that ink. So what I'm trying to remember to do is just put my card base here, place this on top to protect all that stamping that I've just done, and then add my adhesive. I'm going to place my bow where I want it, and I'm looking at this one to make sure. When it was on the block, it seemed like it was a little twisted right there, but since I've cut it, it kind of straightened out. So I'm just going to place it here and have this edge, I'm laying it right up to the where the cardstock meets the Designer Series paper, and then I'm going to do the same on the back. Now I'm going to turn it over. So I want to make sure it stays nice and stuck, so I'm going to add more tape, and then this gets to the front of the card. I just think a little bow on the holiday cards makes it look more festive, and it's not too lumpy, so I should not need extra postage on this card. So I've already cut some scrap white cardstock. This is 1 inch by 4 inches, I think. It's a little longer than what I need. We're going to use Tranquil Tide ink for the greeting. And I'm pretty sure I have the greeting on this block straight, but I want to double check it, and then I'll show you a trick. So ink it up. I'm going to use this solid line right here in the middle of my grid paper, and I'm going to line up the bottom of this acrylic block to that line. So I'm just going to place it right there. So you can see that it looks very straight. So I want to stamp this pretty even and centered on this cardstock. So if I place it here, I know that if I go just above that line, not quite to the line, it's going to be centered top to bottom. I'm just placing the paper just a little bit above that line. Make sure your greeting is not upside down. And again, I'm lining up the bottom of this block to that dark line on the grid paper. I need to adjust that a tiny bit. And right where that line is. So I'm going to take this to my paper trimmer and trim a little edge off here, and I'll be right back. I want to make a little notch on this end, so I'm going to use the banner punch. And I'm just going to push that in as far as it will go. I think I have it long enough, but it's not going to chop my greeting. I know I want it closer to the greeting, so I'm just going to turn that in again, but I'm going to do it upside down. Oh, see how I can see the greeting from the back? Right there. So I know I don't want to go all the way in. So I'm going to pull this back a little bit. There we go. I'm going to use the edge of the dimensionals. And add this to the front. I want to line it up to the edge of the paper here. Make sure I'm nice and straight. Now we have some rhinestones, because it is a holiday card, so it's nice to have a little bit of sparkle. Oops, I kind of dropped that one too fast. So I like to use the pokey tool to get under the adhesive on the rhinestones. I've stamped the inside of the card, a little poinsettia and leaves at the bottom right, and I purposely stamped the greeting a little offset. And I stamped the envelope to match. I hope you enjoyed today's projects. For more ideas, you can visit me at KeenanCreations.com and also find me on Facebook. Thanks and have a great day.